Hey everybody, welcome back to Two for the Show. My name is Marcus, and I'm joined by my good friend Tyler. Today we're going to be talking about Season 2 of The Last of Us, Episode 3. We have reviews of the first and second episode as well, so if you haven't checked those out, make sure that you like and subscribe to this channel. Check out our other movie reviews as well, and follow us on social media. We would really appreciate that. Thanks for checking us out. So in this episode, we get to see the aftermath of Joel's death. We get to see some pretty faithful recreations of some video game scenes, including Ellie walking through his house and kind of reminiscing on their relationship. Pretty heartbreaking stuff. And we get to see some more, I guess you could say, story expanding scenes between Dina and Ellie, as well as some pretty interesting scenes with this new therapy character that they've added for this season. And we also get to see an introduction of the Scars, which is a religious cult from the video game that is actually appearing pretty early. I remember, if I remember correctly at least, I believe that they were introduced a lot later in the video game story, so that was also kind of a shock to me. And then at the end, we get a little bit of a, I guess, warning or cliffhanger about the WLF and the actual numbers that they have. They're obviously being underestimated by Ellie and Dina. So overall, a pretty slow episode, but I feel like it was a needed one. Obviously, I didn't expect this episode to be intense action, especially after what happened. They needed to let the emotions sit, especially for the general audience. But just handing it over to Tyler, what did you think about the first part of this episode where we get to see Ellie walking through Joel's house?
It felt a little bit more heartfelt than it felt in the game. Like I really felt bad for her and kind of felt her kind of crushedness, like when she saw his jacket. I think it was handled pretty well. I thought it was interesting too, the hospital scene right off the bat.
Yeah.
Showing that she had been pretty badly hurt, because I didn't think she was that hurt after the last episode. So her having to spend like 3 months in the hospital was kind of a shock to me, and definitely a deviation from the game.
Is that how long it said? 3 months?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, or I might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure they were like, it's been 3 months. You just have to see one more person and bring back in Gale.
I did actually notice that, like, when it showed Ellie in the hospital, her hair was like down. So I feel like they're actually trying to make her look a little bit older, I guess. I mean, you don't really age a lot in 3 months, but they're trying to make her look different, I guess. Like there's pre-Joel death and post-Joel death, I guess. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But that interaction that she had with Gale was pretty funny. You know, she's still kind of acting up the punky teenager vibe with Ellie in that scene. So I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit, if I'm going to be honest. But I guess the point of that scene was to kind of show that she still kind of lies about how she's feeling about everything.
She's kind of like forced to kind of thing. And especially now that Joel's dead, she has to extra lie to like, because she knows exactly what she wants to do. And she does try and do it kind of the right way by going to trying to gather the council and get like a group to go out. But she knows she's going to do it no matter what. And it's kind of leads into like the conversation between Gale and Jesse, where Jesse's like, I'm worried about her, and Gale's like, she's a liar, blah, blah, blah. It's like,
Oh, you mean Tommy?
Tommy. I think I did that before too. But yeah, Tommy and Gale's conversation.
Yeah, I think that a lot of I caught a few things here and there sprinkled through this episode where they're very much trying to justify what's going to happen later this season, you know? Because if they went right from her just waking up in the hospital and sneaking out of town and with Dina and going into this kind of murder rampage, I think a lot of casual viewers would be left kind of confused. So the whole like Gale therapy thing where she analyzes Ellie as a liar and like she was always been this way and Joel didn't make her this way. She's always been broken. I think that's kind of why they did that.
I thought that was kind of interesting that they're like Gale's comparing them as like kind of two similar souls. That conversation where Gale's talking about them, saying that they're very kind of similar, like kindred souls. in a way.
Yeah, Ellie was like this before she even met Joel, which is, I don't know if I really buy that, because I thought about that and it was like the first season, there's that episode where Ellie is assaulted by that guy and she has to murder him inside that house that's like burning down. And she's like so traumatized by it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so hearing that, like, she's always been like this, I'm like, I mean, maybe, but like, she's gonna do some really messed up stuff here if they follow the video game. So I don't know if that, if just some therapist that's met with her a couple of times saying that she's always been the way she is going to really justify some of it. But I don't know. We'll have to see how closely they stick to some of the game stuff.
I have a feeling that it's going to be toned down quite a bit. I mean, I'm sure it's going to happen the same way where she kind of like gets all the friends of Abby and then gets to her eventually. But I'm sure it's going to be a lot more toned down than it is in like the video game, just like the first season with Joel kind of thing. Like, he doesn't fight that often, but when he does, it's pretty impactful.
Yeah, like they obviously can't just have it be constant back-to-back action like it is in the game, because that's what a game is for. It's for gameplay, it's for fun. But for the show, they have to have a narrative that makes sense and all that kind of stuff. So I could see that. But like jumping right into the scene with the scars, I was pretty surprised that they brought them in as early as they did. I didn't expect them to appear this early. You know, it's been a while since I've played the game, so pretty much everything after Joel's death is kind of a blur to me at this point. And they're kind of introduced as like this really creepy cult that like murders people, you know, like they had bodies strung up inside of that one building. And the way they're introduced in the show is kind of like making you want to empathize with them. Like, you know, it shows that guy with his daughter, but his daughter has those scars, so it's like still kind of creepy and weird, but they seem like normal people. And then we can talk about what happens to them later, but I was just kind of surprised by that scene, and I didn't really expect it.
In the game, they don't introduce the scars or the Seraphites until Abby takes over. And so that kind of was an indication to me that they're maybe going in the right direction, where they're not going to do like the 50-50 split like they did in the game. And because they show, I think, Manny, they're probably going to show the brutality of the WLF more, like kind of what they did with that scene where they killed all the Seraphites or the scars.
So do you think it's time to make a conspiracy theory here? There's only, let's see, I think the season is going to be 8 episodes. So we only have 5 episodes left. Do you think they're going to draw out all of Ellie's side of the story for the rest of the season? And then next season, it's all going to be Abby?
I hope not. That's definitely a direction they could go, but I'm hoping that it's gonna do both Ellie and Abby until the fight, and then the third season will be the post fight of like the game, because I know they've said in the past that they're not doing it the whole game in one season, that they're gonna do multiple seasons. So if I were a betting man, I would say the season finale is gonna be the fight between Abby and Ellie.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see. I just feel like them splitting up the stories that way might be safer, because they can end on a huge cliffhanger. You know, Ellie finally found Abby. What's going to happen? Just you got to wait till next season, you know, because I feel like people are already leaving the show because of what happened to Joel. So if they switch to Abby's side of the story, I think even more people are going to leave. So it actually, the more I think about it, it actually kind of makes sense for them to just follow Ellie for the rest of the season, end it on a huge cliffhanger, then pick up season 3 starting with Abby. I mean, obviously that would be, I don't know, I feel like people would be kind of up in arms about that, but right now it almost seems like the safest way, because I think that viewership did drop after last week.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I just hope that they kind of keep Abby's story more to a minimum. That's how I felt how it should have been in the game, is that like, I get what they were trying to do. It's a B story, so I feel like it should have been less focused on. And then again, the whole last half of the game, where it's definitely more story and more meat. I'm really curious if they're gonna do like full Abby episodes, or like I say, having the like WLF and the Seraphites show up so early is interesting. And I'm hoping that means that they're gonna start spreading the time between the two now, show a little bit of that. But then again, there's a lot of Abby's parts that they might just cut, which would probably be useful to the story. Like the first half of Abby's story, I feel like, is not necessarily needed to tell the story. Like the parts where she's angry, and there's the whole like supermarket scene where it's her and Nat and stuff, which, I mean, kind of does a little bit of character bonding between the two, but again, it doesn't need to be that long. So they can probably put it somewhere else.
I guess it really depends on how prideful Neil Druckmann wants to be at this point, because I think he knows, even though he won't admit it, I think he knows that he kind of bungled the story for the video game, and having a showrunner and people who are helping him write this show now, I think it's his opportunity to kind of fix the pacing and maybe rearrange things so that way it's a little less bad, for lack of a better word. So like, you know, they've made small adjustments to certain elements of the story, which have actually been better. And especially having to do with Abby's characters, or her crew, I guess, like Owen and Mel, like they definitely changed how they have been so far. So I think that those are kind of like little hints that they're going to try their best to make the characters that everybody hated maybe a little bit more relatable, maybe a little bit more realistic. So I could see them dragging out Abby's story and really trying to get people to empathize with her, because I think that's what it lacked in the video game. People just hated Abby. Like there was kind of no redemption for her in a lot of people's eyes. And so I think they're going to try to focus on her a little bit more, because I think that as fans of the video game, a lot of us want to think that her story was kind of a B plot, when I really think that Neil Druckmann wanted her to be the main character moving forward. Like, you don't just bring in a random character and have her kill off your main character and carry a lot of the story weight without wanting people to get behind her, I guess. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I think that, you know, this episode was definitely slow, and I think that it was needed. I didn't expect it to be like a crazy action show or episode, excuse me, but it was definitely a little bit slower than I expected, and a lot of the character moments didn't hit as hard as I think they probably should have.
I think they did a better job of fleshing it out than they did in the game. Like I felt like the section in the game was not exactly rushed, but it like definitely didn't have any meat to it. And it was just like, okay, here's a transition piece to get you back into the game. I guess his name is Seth. Kind of trades rifles with Ellie and kind of supports her in her cause, and they kind of have that moment where they shake hands, and it's like, I don't like you, but thank you. I liked the town hall, and I thought that made more sense, especially for Ellie's character at the moment, looking to get help instead of just rushing off like she does in the game. I thought Dina was really great in this episode. Isabella Merced, I'd really liked her go forward attitude, like no matter what, just go.
Yeah, she's definitely been the best character that they've added from the second video game. Yeah, that actress is doing a really great job. The scene where Seth brings her all the resources and stands up for her, during the meeting, I think that it was kind of a subtle, not so subtle way of showing like Ellie is following the wrong path, because there's like that older guy who kind of says, oh, we should forgive them and forget, you know, and the pregnant lady's talking about how they're trying to rebuild the town and all that kind of stuff. All of that makes a lot of sense, and it's probably obviously the best thing that they could do as a group, instead of going to like just start a war with these random people they know nothing about just because they killed Joel. And so Ellie kind of going through with this with the help of Seth, to me was kind of like hey, she's going down this wrong path and agreeing with somebody who is a bigot, I guess.
I guess it's really just kind of like a matter of perspective when you consider what's wrong and what's right kind of thing, because like I feel like I lean more towards Seth being right. I don't know. I guess it's one of those moral quandaries kind of thing that I don't think everyone's going to agree with or disagree. It's like, do we want to take revenge? Or they try to make the argument for it being justice and not revenge, but I mean, it's kind of both in a way. Yeah, I would agree that it's definitely kind of making those distinctions for people to kind of have those questions, kind of make their decision on what they think is wrong or right here. Regardless if it's the right or wrong reason for her to go, it definitely becomes pretty clear with the following story. It really wasn't a good idea in the end kind of thing, especially for Ellie.
Yeah, it's like the whole, I guess, plot or I guess overarching theme of the second video game story is revenge bad. Revenge leads to nothing but pain and whatnot. So it's a very heavy-handed
violence
foreshadowing, I guess, to the end of the story, with her following Abby, trying to just get revenge and justice or whatever.
Violence begets violence, and the circle of violence never ends. The whole game is a violent video game, so it kind of defeats its own point by being what it is. And violence is bad. Now, stab this clicker in the face and enjoy it. Yeah.
And kill all these random innocent people that had nothing to do with it. And then, so after Ellie and Dina leave the town, we get a montage scene of them walking through, the United States. That was pretty cool. I thought that it was shot well, kind of showed just how far they were going. That's something that is, I guess, a saving grace for some of the parts of the show, is like the cinematography and the production value of the show is really, really good. And it's really pretty to look at. I really liked how they shot the scene where they're in the tent after the rain. It felt very like real, I guess you could say. It felt very homely. It felt like I was there with them. And then, just more character building about that relationship between Ellie and Dina, which is going to just continue to grow throughout the season. So the rest of the episode, I can't really think of anything that was super impactful other than the scene where Ellie and Dina stumble upon the dead Scar members. That was, again, kind of the breadcrumbs that I feel like the storytellers are leaving, where it's like, hey, Ellie and Dina are seeing the WLF as bad people. They're seeing them as murderers, and the audience should see them as that too, because all we know about them is they killed Joel, and they killed these people that have not kind of been expanded on. We don't know who they are. Ellie doesn't know who they are, and she definitely, at this point, just sees them as murderers, especially with the fact that they killed a little girl. I think that anybody would see that and automatically think that these people are just terrible. And we actually don't even know who killed them at this point. So again, just little breadcrumbs the writers are leaving to get the casual viewer on the side of Ellie and Dina at this point.
Putting Abby in, if they want a chance of getting people to have that more kind of conflicted feeling when it gets to the fight scene between Ellie and Abby, I'm curious to see if they are going to start doing that or not.
Yeah, I feel like they really don't have a choice at this point. They really need to start putting her in either with kind of short clips to show what she's up to, or I'm kind of thinking that that my idea might actually be what they end up doing and just kind of leaning heavily into Ellie this season and then turning into Abby next season. But we'll have to see. This episode had to happen the way it did. It had to show the aftermath of Joel, so it was going to focus on Ellie, obviously. So this next episode where they kind of get more into the meat and potatoes of Ellie and Abby's story. And then, there is that scene at the end where we kind of get to see just how many people Ellie's going to end up killing in the WLF. Thinking about this episode as a whole, it's hard for me to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And so I don't really know if I want to give it any kind of rating personally, just for me, because I found the episode to be very slow, and I found it to not necessarily be boring, because there was still some interesting stuff in here that they added that was not in the video game, so it was new to me. But I definitely think it felt more like it was a necessity for the storyline than it was an entertainment, because the last episode was so crazy with the action and stuff. This was definitely a total foot off the pedal. And so I'm hoping that next episode we get some more action, some more interesting stuff happening. And so like I said, I don't really want to give this episode a rating, but I'm curious to see what you have to say, Tyler.
I'd give this episode a thumbs up. I feel like this episode is more of a return to form than like the last couple episodes have been. Like the first season was definitely a lot slower paced, more character driven. I did like the additions that they made. I definitely feel like my enthusiasm now that Joel's dead has gone down a little bit. But this is definitely, like I said in the last episode, this is definitely the part I want to see how they do it. This is the part I'm most curious about.
Well, if you want to see us to continue to talk about the rest of the season, or if you want us to just, hang on until the last episode and just kind of give a rating for the entire season, let us know in the comments below. Either way, we appreciate you watching this video and checking this channel out. And I think we're going to do a review of Thunderbolts next, and we will catch you on that. So yeah, thanks again for checking us out. See you in the next one.